Imagine you're an NFL GM. In the coming years, you've been handed the seemingly impossible task of replacing your franchise quarterback. What would you do? It's a tough question because there's such a high likelihood of failure. Making the right decision could spark or continue a dynasty, but one wrong move and your team could find itself spiraling out of control towards the bottom of the standings. Today, I've identified 4 main ways that teams try to replace their franchise quarterback. But before we get into that, we have to identify what a franchise quarterback actually is. I've defined it as 7 consecutive years as a starter for the same team. I did this because 7 years would be equivalent to a full rookie contract plus a multi-year extension, showing that the organization has had faith in the player as their long-term solution. Granted, some of these franchise quarterbacks didn't play their rookie deals with these teams or even have a 5-year rookie contract, but the logic of the team having faith still has its application. We will also only be looking at examples since 2010. And now that we've cleared that up, we can get into it, starting with the top draft pick, which is the main way to replace a quarterback. One of the main examples of this recently is the Bengals, who replaced Andy Dalton with Joe Burrow. They drafted Joe Burrow to replace him after 9 seasons, ending with a 2-14 finish as his final season as the Bengals starter. In that last season in 2019, Andy Dalton threw for 3,500 yards and 16 touchdowns to 14 interceptions in only 13 games. In 2020, after drafting Joe Burrow number 1 overall, he immediately appeared to be an upgrade on Dalton. In his 10 games as a rookie, Burrow didn't necessarily set the world on fire, but he had flashes before he ended up unfortunately tearing his ACL. He returned in 2021 and was dominant on his way to winning Comeback Player of the Year and leading the Cincinnati Bengals to their first Super Bowl appearance since 1988. Ever since, the Bengals have been successful and Joe Burrow has been a superstar and one of the faces of the NFL. Many teams thought that the 2019 Bengals were tanking in order to get the first overall pick, but the earliest example of tanking is usually considered the 2012 Colts. With future Hall of Famer Peyton Manning undergoing season-ending neck surgery before 2011, the Colts committed to going for that number 1 pick, which they used on Stanford quarterback Andrew Luck. Luck came in and immediately made a major impact, leading the Colts to the playoffs in 2012 and becoming a 4-time Pro Bowler in his time with the Colts. Unfortunately, injuries and a combination of other factors led to Luck retiring early after the 2018 season, but his time on the field proved that he was in fact a successful pick for the Indianapolis Colts. These examples tended to be pretty successful, but not every draft pick works out. Sometimes the players just never live up to their highly touted reputation coming out of the draft. Let's look at the Bears for this. In 2017, they were looking to replace Jay Cutler, so they traded up to the number 2 slot in the draft to select Mitchell Trubisky. Trubisky never lived up to the hype, playing 4 seasons for the Bears that ranged from mediocre to just downright bad. Today, Trubisky finds himself as a backup to our next player. After 18 seasons of Big Ben Roethlisberger, the Steelers found themselves looking for the new long-term solution in the 2022 draft, selecting Kenny Pickett 20th overall. While Pickett showed flashes as a rookie, his sophomore season appeared to be a step back. And after recovering from a mid-season ankle surgery, his starting job was given over to longtime backup Mason Rudolph. While the book isn't fully written on Pickett, this pick appears to be heading the way of the bust. Next up, we have the Giants. With 2-time Super Bowl champ Eli Manning declining and appearing to be on his way out, the Giants controversially picked Daniel Jones 6th overall in 2019. After his first 3 seasons, he suffered from major turnover problems as well as seeming to be constantly injured. But in 2022, Jones broke out under new head coach Brian Daboll, posting career highs in passing and rushing yards, as well as career lows in interceptions and fumbles. The Giants gave Jones a large extension in the offseason, which ended up receiving much criticism. In 2023, Giants quarterback Jones appeared to regress back to the norm. The turnovers were back up, and he suffered a season-ending torn ACL after just 6 games. While Jones did put together 1 season, there's been way more bad than good, and most would rule this pick as a bust. The next category is the stopgap or veteran. Not every team has the opportunity to spend a high pick on a QB, so maybe it's not the right year, or maybe it's just not optimal for them to take one with their high pick. So what do they do instead? They find a serviceable player to be a short-term replacement while they can search for the real long-term solution. But if these players play well enough, they can earn themselves the starting job as the long-term starter. Generally, these players are former starters looking for a second chance, mixed in with a few high-level backups getting to try their hand as a starter. This has proved to be a pretty unsuccessful strategy overall, so I'm not really going to get into the details on all these failures, but I'll just give some names. The Colts tried to do it, moving from Andrew Luck to Jacoby Brissett. The Texans moved from Matt Schaub to Ryan Fitzpatrick. The Raiders moved from Derek Carr to Jimmy Garoppolo. The Falcons went to Marcus Mariota after Matt Ryan. The Saints moved on from Drew Brees, going to Jameis Winston. The Panthers moved on from Cam Newton to go to Teddy Bridgewater. And the Patriots moved on from Tom Brady to go to Cam Newton. But it isn't all bad. There's been a few recent examples of success. The Seahawks moved on from Russell Wilson, going to Geno Smith. Head coach Pete Carroll put all of his faith in Geno Smith, who hadn't been a full-time starter since 2014 with the Jets. Smith took over the role as the starter for Seattle in 2022 and was electric, leading the Seahawks to a winning record while throwing 30 touchdowns on his way to the Comeback Player of the Year award. He also made the Pro Bowl and even got MVP votes. He followed up the resurgence with a less stellar 2023, but he still made his second consecutive Pro Bowl appearance and helped the Seahawks to another winning record during his starts. With the Rams in search of a Kiwi to bring home a Super Bowl trophy, they sent away Jared Goff, someone who was believed to be on his way out of the league, for longtime Lions signal caller Matthew Stafford. Goff wasn't impressive in his first year in Detroit, but he had a very strong 2022 season, making the Pro Bowl and leading the Lions to a winning record. He also helped the Lions take yet another leap from bottom feeder to contender, doing enough to lead Detroit all the way to the NFC Championship game. While Stafford did help the Rams to bring home the Lombardi in 2021, Goff has revitalized his career and even went from inconsistent to effective over the course of a few years in Detroit. The next category we have is one of the least common, the process. The process involves drafting a new quarterback while the franchise quarterback is still on the roster. While teams rarely are in the position to do this, it's proven successful when it's been attempted. Our first example is the Ravens. As Joe Flacco began entering the declining stage of his career, the Ravens drafted Lamar Jackson 32nd overall in 2018 to replace him in the future, but made the decision to leave him on the bench. After Flacco suffered a hip sprain mid-season, Jackson was thrust into the starting lineup and immediately was electric on the ground despite struggling in the passing game. Flacco never got the starting job back after returning from injury, and since then, Lamar has improved upon his passing abilities, and he's set quarterback rushing records on the way to 2 MVPs and becoming one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. We also have the Packers. Drafted 26th overall by the Packers in 2020, Jordan Love was considered a controversial pick off the bat. People questioned the pick after Aaron Rodgers proceeded to win back-to-back MVPs in 2020 and 2021. After spending 3 seasons on the bench, Love was finally given the reins in 2023 after Aaron Rodgers left for the Jets. After some early season struggles, Love caught fire in the second half of the season, even leading Green Bay to the playoffs and a dominant wildcard victory against the Cowboys. Though Jordan Love has only been a starter for 1 season, his time on the bench allowed him to develop and become a star as soon as he took the field. And lastly, we have my favorite category, the accident. Let's start with the Chargers. They moved on from Phillip Rivers to Tyrod Taylor and Justin Herbert. This situation might seem to be one of the craziest of them all, as it potentially fit into every other category as well. The Chargers attempted to replace Phillip Rivers with stopgap quarterback Tyrod Taylor, giving the opportunity for 6th overall pick Justin Herbert to sit on the bench and learn the ropes of the NFL. After a minor rib injury, Tyrod Taylor sought treatment after a 2020 Week 2 matchup against the Chiefs. But chaos ensued as somehow this resulted in the Chargers team doctors puncturing Taylor's lung. With Tyrod on his way to the hospital, the Chargers had to quickly pivot to the young and unprepared Justin Herbert. Herbert played well and continued to develop into a star over the course of the 2020 season, winning Rookie of the Year. Tyrod Taylor, on the other hand, never got another chance with the Chargers and ended up suing the Chargers team doctor for medical malpractice. And the last one we have for this category is the Cowboys. After Tony Romo suffered a preseason injury in 2016, the Cowboys were left scrambling and with no choice but to turn to 4th-round rookie Dak Prescott. While he had put together a nice preseason, no one expected what was next, as Dak proceeded to put together a historic rookie season, winning Rookie of the Year, and getting MVP votes in the process. Since then, things have been a little bit up and down for Prescott, especially in the big games, but Dallas was able to make a seamless transition from one steady quarterback to another. Anyway guys, that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, feel free to leave a like and subscribe, and drop a comment if there's anything you might want to see in the future. Thanks for watching.